Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Ball Pit. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Kenny Sun and publisher Devolver Digital, Ball Pit released in October of 2025 for the PC via Steam, the Xbox, the PlayStation 5, and the Nintendo Switch, which is the version we're looking at today. This title is a vertical scrolling brick breaker RPG roguelite, so although not necessarily a shoot 'em up per se, it has a lot of shoot 'em up elements in it, and I've been having a blast with this title, so it's an easy recommend for anybody, especially if you're a fan of brick breakers or roguelites. The game also has a lot of content for the price being asked, so there's definitely a lot of value here. So with that said, let's dive right in. Balbalonia has fallen. So this is the opening cutscene you get when you start the game. It basically sets up the whole story of these treasure hunters diving into these depths to hunt for treasure. And now we find ourselves playing our first round of Ball Pit. For movement, you control the character with the left stick, and we can move the whole length of the field, both forward and backwards. You aim with the right stick, and you fire your balls with the right trigger if you're playing with controller. So this one is a brick breaker, so it's great to have as many balls out as possible. It's possible to turn on auto fire, so instead of having to manually pick when you're shooting, you can just fire whenever you have balls available. This will help fill the field with lots of bouncing projectiles, dealing more damage to the enemies. As we defeat the enemies, they drop experience crystals, and once we collect enough of those, we level up. So here's the RPG element. In addition to that, we have the roguelite element, so after we get our level up, you can select a new upgrade from 3 different choices. So in this case, we have a new ball that we could potentially get, so this will be a new special ball. We can upgrade the one that we started with, or you can get a passive. So just so we can get a little bit more damage out there, I'll pick the new ball. And each ball has the different stats and different effects as well. So for this one, the iron ball, it's slower, but it deals a lot of damage. So now we have to do our best to survive against the enemy horde, and we'll continue to gain experience and level up. So now we could get passives or we can get even additional balls. I do recommend focusing on getting as much offense, so selecting balls as much as possible when you're first starting a run. Though there are some passives, if you see them come up, definitely those are what you'd want to pick up. So now let's talk a little bit about what we have on the screen itself. So actually, let's grab this swirl, fusion reactor. So these fusion reactors are one of the really neat elements. And basically, if you're equating it to some other like survival roguelites, think of it like the treasure chests, where you can potentially upgrade your items, but in addition to that, you can also fuse or even evolve them. So since we don't have anything ready for a fusion or evolution, we simply just get fission. And fission allows you to upgrade a certain number of, your equipment a certain number of times. So on the low end, you'll get just one, but you could potentially get 5 upgrades in one of those fusions, or rather fissions. As we continue to upgrade, we can select even more balls and move through. So now let's talk a little bit about the UI. So on the left side of the screen, we have our life represented by that red liquid, and above that we have our experience bar, the blue liquid that fills the sword. So each character has a little bit of a different look, but for the warrior, which is the character we're playing, that's the look we have for them. On the right side of the screen, let's go ahead and get this fusion out of the way. On the right side of the screen, we have our stage progress. So as we move through the stage, our progress on the stage is tracked by the meter on the right. At those exclamation points, we'll encounter sub-bosses. And then once we hit the top of the meter, that will be when we fight the final boss itself. Above that, we have our stage speed. So it's actually possible to slow down the stage or increase the speed depending on what you feel comfortable with. Of course, this also slows your character down, but it's a lot easier to go and parse. Now, how do we take damage? So of course, if we get shot by these enemy projectiles, we'll take damage, but in addition to that, if we're too close to the enemies, they'll directly attack us, or if they hit the front of the screen, they'll attack us then. If we take enough damage, then it's game over, and we get our stat screen. So you do earn experience for every run that permanently levels up the character. So your characters will get stronger the more you use them. In addition to that, after you've gone through your results screen, we're taken back to our base. And in addition to being a brick breaker roguelite RPG, the game also has a city building element to it. So here we're being tutorialized on how that works. So we're going to build a wheat field and a forest, and then we're going to harvest it. The harvesting is really fun because this is a brick breaker. The way you harvest is you fire your characters into your basically city harvesting area, and they'll bounce around the field collecting anything that they come across. In addition to that, should we be building additional buildings, it requires that you bump that building with the characters to get the building taken care of. It's actually a really fun mechanic, and you can have a lot of interesting interaction with the way that both the buildings are and how you build your harvesting area. So here we've gathered those resources, and we'll use those resources to potentially get other buildings throughout the course of your run. So this is the area that we start out with, but then as you play the game, you'll end up with a city area that looks a bit more like this. So after having spent some time with the game, you start to get a lot more buildings that both require more resources, so you're going to build a lot more fields and trees, and truth be told, I could probably expand them even further, but all those buildings will help upgrade stats. Will also give you stat increases. In addition to that, there's also several characters you can unlock, and there's other effects that are present here as well. So now when we do a harvest, instead of just having one character bouncing around like you saw, instead we can have all these characters bouncing around. In addition to that, there's also other ways that you can collect resources as well. You can set up these huts that will act as like kind of like wheat fields, or let's see, farmhouses, lumberjack mines that will help you get the resources as well. We can go and speed that up. As you do get more characters and other bonuses, it's possible to extend the time that your characters are bouncing around. Now let's dive into another run, and we can see how things look once things are more advanced. So there are a ton of characters that you can potentially unlock as the course of the game plays, and each of these characters has different base stats, but they also have special effects as well as a different starting ball. So depending on what you're looking for, there's a lot of gameplay here. But we'll keep things relatively basic and do another run with the warrior, but this time with some of the effects turned on. So there are also a lot of stages that you can potentially unlock through the course of your gameplay. We'll stick with the first stage that we did, the Boneyard, just so you can see more of that stage in its gameplay, and specifically the boss. So here we've jumped into a run a little bit further in. We have a full selection of balls and a couple that are fully leveled up. So now, when we encounter a fusion reactor, we have a couple more options available to us. We have a couple evolutions available. There's also fusions and some fission. So when you select fusions, you can potentially fuse together two balls. This will take the two balls fully leveled together, combine them for their effects. However, if you have evolutions available, I would definitely recommend this, as it takes your two balls, combines them together, and gives you a powerful upgraded ball. Although this one will start at level 1, so you do have to upgrade it again to get it for full power. So you can see here, read the descriptions of your options, and then select what you want for fusion. You get this neat effect where it pulls them in there, and bam, we have our new special ball. That does reset the number of balls we have, so we did have a full selection of 4, now we're back down to 3. And we find ourselves fighting our first mini-boss. So the mini-bosses are larger enemies that have a significantly more HP and the potential to go and do a lot of damage as well. Especially if they hit the front of the stage, they'll do significant damage. But as you deal damage to them, you'll see them crack, and if you're strong enough, you'll take them out pretty quickly. A lot of times they will happen to make it further down the screen. They always drop quite a bit of experience. In addition to that, we also will get a guaranteed fusion reactor from defeating a boss, or rather a mini-boss. So with that fusion reactor, we can take advantage of our other evolution that we had available to us. So when you're building a run, there's a couple of things that are important to consider. So depending on which stage you're playing, some of the enemies will be more challenging or have certain elements to them that you'll want to consider. If you happen to know that you're going to have enemies reaching the front of the stage, planning for like HP recovery and maybe even like damage mitigation is not a bad idea. But like other stages, sometimes you're just looking for raw damage output, and there are a lot of ways you can achieve that. But so far we've only seen the one character here represented, the warrior. The game has tons of other characters that really change up the gameplay. For example, there's this character, or rather characters, where we actually have 2 points that we're launching our balls from, and what this does is it splits up your damage, but at the same time you have twice as many balls on screen, giving you a lot of ability to use special effects should you have a really good assortment of special balls. Now there's also this character who changes things up in a really dramatic way. Rather than the balls entering the stage from where your character is and firing from your character, they'll enter the stage from the back of the screen, making back attacks significantly more powerful. There are some passives that you can definitely use to take great advantage of this, but once again, this also comes with some risks, as if the enemy's not at the back of the screen, it's going to be significantly harder to reach them and deal damage to them. So as the bar on the right fills, we find ourselves approaching the final boss. And one thing I did forget to mention, at the exclamation marks as well as the final boss, the stage does expand outward, making it a little harder to get a good amount of bounces in, so you do want to take that in mind once again when you're building your runs. So now we'll go and get our boss introduced, and we'll be able to see some of the more bullet hell elements that the game has. So each of the boss fights is unique, and they have their own elements to them. But one of the things that's in common is there are significantly more bullet hell-like mechanics at play here. So we do get some extra enemies here to fight, but the boss's attacks here are all very much a bullet hell style attack, like you can see here. So once you first encounter this boss, one thing to go and note about the first stage boss is that its weak point is actually the crown behind its head. Normally you can't directly attack that, as your balls do not pass through the enemy, but there are certain balls that you can get or passives you can get that will take care of that, and thus we can shoot through the enemy, making really short work of the first boss. But of course each of the boss fights are different, and they're one of the really fun parts of the game, but when you're playing, especially encountering one for the first time, they can be really stressful since you don't know what to expect from the fights and you don't want to lose your progress. So now we've finished up a run, and the warrior did earn enough experience this time that you can see some of the stack growth you get from that experience, and this is permanent stats for the character. So the warrior, for my particular save here, is level 11, and we have stack growth represented by grades on the right there and the stats that we have. So for this level up, we earned some more dexterity and intelligence, and when you look at the detailed stats, you can see how each of those stats affects your overall gameplay. Then we have the damage here for each of the balls that we had for the run, and well, that is ball pit served up for your enjoyment. So as far as minus flavors are concerned, there's not much negative I can say about Ball Pit, other than the fact that it might be a bit grindy for some depending on what you're looking for. But on the plus flavors, so the game has this great low poly aesthetic to it. The way that the art comes across really fits that kind of creepy vibe that the game is going for. Then you have all those various characters, the overall unlocking of the city, all those mechanics really flow together to make a wonderful package. You have like the ability to play the game through with different characters, and even the ability to like change up the runs even further by maybe even combining together characters, that sort of thing. So as far as like the game is concerned, it has excellent brick breaking mechanics, wonderful roguelike mechanics, and really at the end of the day, it's just a ton of fun. So it's definitely an easy recommend from the chef. If you like, well, roguelites in particular in general, this is definitely one that I encourage you seek out and give a try. And with that, we find ourselves at the end of this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, we want to thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.